What are the best ways to differentiate oneself as a test optional applicant?
Oh, that's a very good question. So I would say, because we are test optional, I recommend checking on our website, checking what SAT scores that we typically accept. I would say if your score is obviously lower than what we accept, or other schools that are test optional do not send your test scores, I just recommend that, because we look at applications holistically. So that means that we are looking at each of the different parts of the application, and that gives you the opportunity, I think, to make you stand out as a person and as a student. For me, when I applied, Bryn Mawr was also test optional, and I was like, my test scores do not define me. I'm not going to send my test scores. And I didn't, and I still got in. So I think that it goes to show that testing is something that is still a topic of heated debate, I would say. But at Bryn Mawr, really, if you do not send in your test scores, and I can honestly say from reading applications, it does not make or break your application. But I would say, if you want to stand out and differentiate yourself from other people, my recommendation is to do that, you need to write about something that is not mentioned in your common application, in your personal statement. Your personal statement. Like, for example, let's say you are in your extracurriculars, you talk about how you're involved with band and choir and like a lot of arts and theater and things like that. In your personal statement, if you write about your passion for all of that's great, but I already know that about you. I'm someone who's, I want to learn something like really interesting. I read this essay this past application season. I thought it was so interesting, but this girl wrote about her identity like transforming as a person, comparing it to the cicadas that come out of the ground. And I just remembered that because I was like, wow, that was really interesting. So students are always writing about something different. So my short answer, my advice to you is make your personal statement stand out.
I love that. I love that. And that's something we say a lot at CollegeVine too. Try to provide the admissions officers as much information as you can about yourself. So provide different perspectives, different parts of your personality. So don't be repetitive in your essays.
Yes, and I also will say, do not use the personal statement as a therapy session, because I think see where students are coming from when, let's say they choose the prompt, tell us about a time when you overcame a challenge or something. I understand that's like a challenge that's very profound in your life, but you have to also think, like, whenever you write an essay, you need to think about who's the reader. Sometimes for me, I personally love to read essays that are uplifting and like wonderful. And sometimes I do read essays that make me cry, but that's not the thing that I want to do all the time. Like, I think that it can get negative very quickly, and you have to really be mindful of who your reader is. So I would say for juniors, rising seniors who are applying to Bryn Mawr, and just in any college, we love to see how you are challenging yourself academically. So that means, are you continuing to take a lot of APs and honors or that are offered, but let's say they aren't offered at your high school? Like, how are you challenging yourself outside of the classroom? Are you taking classes at a local community college or just colleges that might be near you? I would also say, in terms of Bryn Mawr, so compared to a lot of other colleges in the United States, like, we actually offer a lot of like daily visits. At the moment, not because of COVID, but we're going to open up a little bit more for daily visits. But definitely come and visit campus and interact with us, attend any of our, why am I like blanking out? We have like different themed events that are happening in the fall called senior stays that I used to coordinate as a student, where basically they used to be you could stay overnight. We'll see what happens in the fall, but they're like themed academic events about Bryn Mawr. Definitely recommend that you attend those, attend like tour guide hangouts, colleges that you decide to apply to, because a lot of different resources are virtual now. I think it's really important to just interact with those colleges virtually, but also if you are able to in person. But like here at Bryn Mawr, like if you don't come to visit us in person, like it's not gonna make or break your application. Like it really won't. It's just, we understand that it's hard for people to travel across the country, especially now because of COVID, but also airline tickets are really expensive. So valid, completely valid. But yeah, I would say that's my recommendation. But also make sure that you really proofread your application and don't say, like in the section that says like, why do you want to attend Bryn Mawr? Don't say, and that's why I want to attend such and such college, because I see that and I'm like, as an alum, I'm biased because I'm like, oh no, you didn't proofread it. So definitely proofread everything you send us, and don't curse in your application. Please do not curse. I don't know why, but students have been cursing. I've noticed that as a pattern. I'm like, people are cursing in their applications. It's just not a tone that I enjoy reading. That's my recommendation.
I didn't know that was happening. People are getting too comfortable.
Yeah, like I see why they're doing it.
Uh-huh.
Don't do it. Just don't do it.
Someone.
Yes, exactly.
What about, okay, so if a person has learning differences and has taken the most challenging courses that they can take, plenty of honors and dual enrollment, but not ton of APs, but not necessarily the most challenging courses offered at their high school, how should they address that on their application?
I would write that in the additional information section. Like you could say, oh, for example, I had an IEP in high school and I was limited because of my IEP to not take as many AP classes. And we'll read that and we'll be like, oh, that's like totally fine if you explain that. So I recommend explaining that, but also you can like tell your guidance counselor to write that in your letter of recommendation, because we read all the letters of recommendation. So just hearing it from two sources is really important, but just communicate with us. I think sometimes when a student gets, let's say you have all A's and B's throughout high school, and then in 12th and then in 11th, you have random D, and you don't tell us what happened, that your guidance counselor doesn't say anything, like, okay, that's concerning. You would probably be denied admission if you didn't explain it. But if you explained it and said like you had COVID or something, we'll be like, oh, okay, like we'll understand and we'll take a second look at your application. But my advice in anything in life, you just need to communicate what's going on, especially if you're like in a unique situation.
I completely agree. So anytime there's a glaring sort of red flag on your application, try to point it out yourself and then explain the circumstances in the additional information section.